Guys, we're laying frame and it's time to talk sheet metal.
Banks Built, protected by AMSOIL, with support from Roadster Shop and Nitto.
Gale Banks here. Like and subscribe for more education and entertainment. All right, let's get to it. Sean, nice to meet you.
Too.
Nice to see you.
This
is Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we've been hearing great stuff about Empire.
Oh, thank you.
Well, obviously you're doing something right.
Yeah, so I have a few famous cars that we've worked on. This is Maximus, the bare metal Charger. It was also in Fast 7 in bare metal before it actually got clear coated. This only had one scene, and it was at the very end where Paul Walker and Vin Diesel are just, they're driving and parting their ways in the Malibu canyons. Yeah. And Vin Diesel's driving this car.
A lot of people said part of their ways in the Malibu
All right,
canyons.
so Maximus, so the valve covers say 2,000 horsepower. The truth is,
really slow.
the dyno wouldn't hold more than 2,300. So I think if I remember right, it was at 2,300 horsepower at about 13 pounds.
Yeah.
And it would go a lot more. And so this one has a full custom engine bay that we did. And then that firewall is actually a bead rolled firewall. So it's not as deep.
Yes.
But then we went on the engine bay and it's got a lot more pull maxed and deep shapes with the engine bay. And then it also has the louvers, and behind the downpipe, there's mesh, once again, to just pull out the heat. All right, so on the back of Maximus, the actual wide body was 3 inches wider per side. The whole back of the car was widened 6 inches. But the wide body starts at the front of the door.
You can see it in the first photo. You can see
so
it.
the wide body starts at the front of the door.
It starts pushing out.
And then by the back of the door, the body's 1 inch wider. And then it goes to the front of the wheel well, it's already 3 inches. And then it stays 3 inches from the wheel well all the way back. So the bumpers were extended. The trunk is the same size, but the tail lights and everything were moved out.
It looks sweet, is what it looks.
Yeah, so Freiburger's F-bomb. I worked on it a little bit when I actually worked for a shop called Wargaster Speed Shop, who was then contracted by Nelson. And then I worked on it again when it was at Nelson's shop. They updated some of the stuff on it.
Yeah.
And we got it ready for, I think SEMA 2017 did some more stuff to it. Mm-hmm. You might recognize this car.
Absolutely.
So this was...
That's been on the dyno here.
All right, so this build was for Hollywood Hot Rods. This is actually Troy's personal car.
Yes.
We did it as a SEMA build. And we cut the entire back of this car off. This started as a convertible Mustang.
Oh my God.
And it was funny because we got it right off the transporter. It had 6 miles on the car. And I just took a Sawzall and we cut the whole back from the tail lights back off, got rid of the plastic bumper, and then we brought it in 8 inches.
So no change in wheelbase.
No change in wheelbase, just changed the angle lights, brought them in 8 inches, and then reshaped the whole bumper section out of metal, and then made the full diffuser section for it. We made the front diffuser and the rockers on the side, and then the roof, since we got rid of the vinyl roof, we made a one-piece lift-off aluminum roof for it. It's, pretty much like an aircraft.
Oh, this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong, but it's so wrong it's right.
This was my life for about 7 years.
I love the umbrella.
My wife actually, my wife says I was cheating on her with this car because I saw this car more than my wife.
Well, it's better than cheating on her in this car.
This is very true. Mm-hmm. So this is the 1936 Packard. It's named the Mulholland Speedster. We built it at Hollywood Hot Rods. This car, we say, is 90% new metal. And by that, I mean the hood is original, but we shortened it 6 inches, and we added the doors to the hood sides, got rid of the louvers. The grille was shortened 3 inches and narrowed down 6 inches. And then the fenders and rockers were pretty much made from scratch. The back of the body lifts up, and the aluminum top rotates into the back of the car. And then, being the car what it is, we had to put umbrellas in the doors. So it's got umbrellas in the doors, and it actually has a flask underneath the passenger seat. You can barely see it in the photo.
Oh, Lord.
Jeez.
It's an elegant car.
Yeah,
This is one of my favorite cars I've ever built and worked on.
It's beyond elegant. And as John Thawley, who wrote for all kinds of magazines back in the day, and wrote under a pseudonym, Bob Warr, he would say, white walls all the way to the ground. If you're up there watching us, Bob, enjoy this. I'm telling you. I'm sorry, I just kind of reminisce every once in a while.
I'll talk forever.
Oh, I'm not trying to shut you up. This is too interesting.
Well, let's take a look at the renderings and see what we got to do.
All right, it's on. So there's a bunch of problems for you.
You got the clamshell bed.
And we've got the wheel wells in the bed as part of it. The top of the bed, we've had a few people kind of, hey, where the hell's the wood bed? Those things had a wood bed. So we're coming over the sheet metal on top with a wood bed kit.
We're wanting to do bead roll or panels metal there.
On the inside of the
So when that picks
skin.
up from that backside, we don't want to see any of the wood, right?
That's right, yes.
Okay.
So Eric, you got some ideas on the bed?
Yeah, I think the renderings, the actuators are pretty far back, and that brings up, I think, deflection of this thing. So we got a dump bed, and I think we're gonna have the top panel with the wood, the bottom clamshell with all the paneling, but I think it's gonna need some sort of internal structure to stop any deflection when we go up, and probably push those actuators as close as we can to the wheels and try to get some better leverage over that thing. So I think that's gonna be a big challenge there, is how do we incorporate an internal structure and have it mount up to either the clamshell or the top of the bed?
Could be done in vertical sections of sheet metal, flanged over at the top for you to fold off the wood kit too,
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
yeah, that'd be
And are you thinking about 3 inches of this section, something like that, to stabilize it corner to corner and all that jive?
yeah, because I'm thinking we'll probably still have to be in the back third with the actuators, and then it's still going to be a lot of weight out front once we're up and lifting.
So these panels on the backside, we're talking about having a structure frame in between those panels and the bed frame. So those panels on the bottom sides, those are going to be removable, or do we want to keep them on full time?
You're talking about inside the skin of the
Inside
truck, yeah.
the clamshell when it opens up, yeah. So if those are removable, and then that way you put your bolts, you'll have access to all the hardware and everything for the wood bed floor bolting it down. But then it's hidden with these panels.
Yeah, it's called ease of assembly at that point, making it removable.
Because if the wood's mounted to this, but it's bolted and that frame is right there, you don't want to see the bottom of all the nuts from all the wood frames.
Right.
Right.
So depending on how much space you have in there, you can hide everything in. And then these are just the 2 access panels that needed for it. For the tubs, it looks like you guys have tires and stuff, the height figured out. So we know how high because right here you have the tubs going, it looks right up to the bottom of the fender lip, which is probably where they're going to sit with a 22 and probably a meaty tire on it.
So we've got 2 different rear tires. These are just rollers. This is not a street tire. Just put something on there so we could have this conversation. Can you roll that rear over here? This is the Nitto drag radial. I ran these on my 90 Chevy 454 SS, or is it SS 454? God, I can never remember. Not this size. I wish I had them this size, but we had 1,115 horsepower and the thing was tail happy. So we went to the drag radials. They lasted about 4,000 miles, but it gripped. So I went, okay, I'm buying tires every 4,000 miles, but it was fun until I started breaking 3rd gear in the 5-speed. You get on the freeway and squeeze on it, and we shucked gears.
So what's our overall height on this tire?
Yeah, this thing is a strong 31.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. So we're at 31.5. What do we got from the
check
from
on
here to here?
You have the tape measure still?
Tape measure?
Yeah.
Let's get a height dimension.
I'd go from this side because it starts to taper on that side. And we'll just go from here. Oh, no.
Pinch?
Yeah, because we got to go to pinch. We're about 32.5. So we have just about an inch of clearance,
God.
which puts the tire right up to the inside of the bed frame. Moves the tub all the way up.
So when it's all the way up there, we're still on the bag. Yeah, we're good. We are really good. Because if we take this to the digs, that tire is never going to be as high relative to the frame as it is right now. If we can get, would you say we had 32.5?
We're 31.5 to here to the bed, but the chassis is designed to lay the pinch,
right?
Which is on these trucks is about 7. Well, depends on what part of your pinch is good.
Yeah, well, right back here.
It's normally about 3/4.
How much is full of Bondo has been?
Well, yeah, some might have been hit or whatever. So your pinch looks a little wavy a little bit, but
so it
might help us.
Yeah. Here's where
we have about an inch of clearance before the top of the bed.
And this tire would clear if we were laying frame.
Correct.
It wouldn't be, the tub would not be sitting on the tire.
No.
Oh, well, man, that's a relief. I'm glad to hear that. So we're good to go. I mean, the rear, doesn't steer, so it's just got to move up and down and handle a little body roll. I think we're good.
The only thing that we got to look at is when you have the wheels made is going to be the offset. Because with the clamshell, you're going to have the flange here, and then you're going to have the interior, the tub part's going to be connected to this, but you still have, you don't want this to get super thin when it's opened up right here. And it'll be,
we need to stabilize this upper edge somehow. Reinforce
it. So
it
really depends is once
you'd be getting cracks.
Correct.
Ultimately. So they're telling us in CAD that we've got about 14 inches to work with.
Okay guys, I'm looking at the truck here and we're trying to figure out the widest wheel that we can get into here. So right now I have got a 355/25/24, which is a 14-inch section width. So outside sidewall to outside sidewall is going to be 14 inches wide. I've got it out about as wide as it possibly can go while still leaving a little bit of a wiggle room to the outside sheet metal of the truck, which I can show you here. So if we back up to about where the sidewall of the tire is right there, you can see I just left you a little bit of room.
So that's a 14-inch tire.
It's more.
We're going to be 2 inches narrower.
Yeah.
So we'll have space. That flange, I mean, right now it's probably an inch big. You could cheat it down to 1/2 inch to 5/8. And if we cheated it to a 1/2 inch and you added another 1/4 inch return down, it would double the stiffness of it.
You probably want a little bit of a safety gap on both sides there to those peak lines in the bed. But that's kind of where they're sitting at in space. And looking at this thing as a whole, when it's fully compressed, there's no real issue with anything fitting bounding box wise. You can see that there's plenty of room to the shock, plenty of room to the brackets. Some of these brackets are actually inside of the wheel opening, but with it being a massive 24-inch wheel, they actually do fit. All things considered, again, that's a 355 rear tire, 14-inch wide section width, and as a kind of a blanket statement, just where I have this thing floated, if we've got that 55-inch total track width, including brakes, and this wheel and tire is set up as a 24/13, that ends up looking about like a 5.5-inch backspace on the rear. So things to keep in mind, just looking at the biggest, widest tire you can probably safely fit in there.
Now we know we're going to be narrower. The backspace will be different. We're not going to be 14 inches bag to bag. We're going to be about 12 3/8 bag to bag.
If we put the tub right to the bottom of that lip, laid out, you'll still be off of the tub a 1/4 inch or more.
Exactly, but we ain't going anywhere. We're not driving it at that point.
Well, you're going to be doing burnouts laid out, right?
Think about that, tire rubber and sparks. So we're moving up the drive shaft from the back end. We're into the transmission tunnel and the firewall, and we've got Joshua's CAD on screen here, kind of a mug shot from the side of the engine. And you can see we've got that green pipe and the yellow water cap behind it. I think the cap comes right about the bolt-up point.
Firewall is pretty much right at the bell housing.
It sure is.
So that's going to be clearance 2 inches to 3 inches.
We got to push into the firewall a bit.
How are your motor mounts? How much flex do you guys think you're going to get in this motor?
Not much. So if you look at them, it's a through bolt and there's an elastomer bushing in there.
Okay.
So your movement might be 1/8 of an inch. It's really, really tight.
All right. Well, then I guess the other question is, with this thing being planted and that being as rusty as it is, how much movement are you going to get in the cab? I mean, how solid are your body mounts? I mean, that thing might...
Whoa, yeah.
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 All right.
We might have to tune up the body mounts a bit.
Depending-
I got to tell you a little sea story. We
right.
ran this 53 Studebaker, me and Bruce Geisler at Bonneville. He started running it probably in the late 50s. I teamed up with him and we put turbo motors and blown motors, and at one time the same car held 11 records. We were sharing a shop down in Whittier back in the mid 60s. I'm talking to him and I leaned on the car just with my leg, I guess as I recall, yeah, back at the deck behind the rear window. I just leaned on it and the body moved over. I went, what the hell is holding the body on when we're doing 200 and some miles an hour? Is it some sort of aerodynamic trick? So all I'm getting at is we need to tune up the body mounts like we've done that damn Studebaker.
Yeah. Don't want that to move too much.
No.
And then I guess the other player with that is what are you guys going to have in the interior as far as AC wise and all that? Because
Okay.
all that's going to have to move back as well.
We've got a vintage air setup going on here.
Okay.
And I think we can skin the engine side of the firewall. Do I have that right? Yes, you can. Yeah, I'm talking to the audience and the crew.
Let's open the hood up on this thing real quick.
Well, it looks like the firewall is already caressed a bit from GM. But is it high enough, I guess is the question.
Well, so you have intercooler, blower, and everything on top of the motor.
Yeah, it's a liquid coupled setup.
So from where the motor's sitting, how much taller is it going to be on the top of that motor?
Probably 10 to 12 inches.
All right.
I feel we're going to be
Cutting a hole through the hood.
I think we're going to be through the hood. So the intake is anybody's guess and less critical, I think, to the firewall.
And you guys don't
we
want
want to get good fluid dynamics into the back end of that supercharger. That's for sure.
Do you guys want to do anything with wheel covers? Do you want tubs?
in
or
the front?
keeping everything open?
I would really like to do the front. Yes,
Okay.
I would. I mean, we want to drive
if
this.
the manifolds leave enough space for it.
Yeah, it's not going to be just a show queen, if you could call this thing a show queen, but we want to drive it. It would show that it would pop the engine a lot harder too.
What are you guys doing for brakes?
Willwood. So we've got some serious fronts are 15-inch.
Are you
rotors.
doing underdash or are you doing master cylinder on the firewall?
Master cylinder firewall.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got to have some structure there for that.
And
for
then
that
so
braking
you got
effort.
AC lines coming out somewhere on the passenger side
Through the firewall, but
through the firewall.
Yeah.
And they could be hidden inside the tubs if
That-
you did do tubs.
that would be sweet if they were.
And
And then just break them through and come to the compressor.
correct.
Yeah.
On these old ones, the shifting linkage is on the steering column. What is your shifter?
How faithful are we going to be to that?
I hope not, but
Yeah, I hear you. So we're either going to have shift linkage on the floor.
yeah,
I mean,
under
it's-
the floor.
Yeah.
Then you'll need the
could
clearance
come in-
for the transmission tunnel on the one on the driver's side, depending on which side the shifter linkage is on the Allisons. And then, so no wipers, so you can lose all the wiper boxes.
Yeah, that cleans everything up too.
How big's the radiator you're going to put in this thing?
It's going to be a fairly large radiator. So we've got 3 heat exchangers. We've got the air conditioning. We've got the charge air cooler, water cooler, so to speak, for that liquid coupled system. Then we have engine.
Okay.
That'll be it, the 3 of those. Power steering, engine oil. We might do something with the steering. The engine has its own oil cooler built in. So we're okay for oil cooler on the engine.
Batteries?
It's liquid.
Batteries going to the back?
They have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as far back as we can get them.
You'll need to get, the new condenser in there. You gonna utilize your air in?
Yeah, I'd like to go through here and over there and do some air filtration down in
For the
here.
intakes.
But I want to take cold air right through the nose. So,
And then airbox it, runners up to the cutout, put them on the back.
yeah.
Are you gonna want to do, so with the air boxes, you're doing, what, square filters in an air box? Or are you gonna want to do the round filters?
Yeah, we'll probably use what we call the big ass filters, those that are in the drawing.
Okay.
They're circular. I think a round air box looks sweeter, frankly.
Okay.
You know, because you're going to come off and do something tubular up to the back of the blower.
It's a big piece. It's got a 6-inch ID for the
In the back
For
of
the-
the blower?
filter.
Oh, for
The
the
filter itself is
The outlet on the filter is 6 inch.
6 inch. So it's a big piece.
So
and then the box
let
around
me
it.
throw something out
You gotta
here.
throw 2 of those in there.
Yeah.
Could we take the filter out as part of the fender well? So it's integrated, and then you have an outlet up to the blower.
Just merge the two.
And then tie it all in there, kind of French them in.
Tie the duct into it. I think it would look sexy, frankly.
Clear some room.
And then you could pocket the aluminum around the filter so the filter popped on, but then the rest of it was all the one piece, and then you had your outlet over there.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so that tube though has to be 6 inches all the way through.
Well, that's
We
a
could
good.
down swedge it right off the filter, get it to 5.
I wouldn't go less than 5.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
could
I
do
mean,
5.
can we take 5 and then ovalize it?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I can oval with the Pullmax. I have dies that I can ovalize tubing.
Really?
Well, if you do that, could we take the 6 and ovalize it?
We
Because
probably
we're losing
could.
section when you ovalize it. Yeah. But that would look sweet.
Because then you can run it from here, and then
Mm-hmm.
we would pinch it this way. And then I've always wanted to try it because I've done straight shoots
Yes.
with oval. I wanted to try doing an oval and twisting it. And if we could do that, then we gain the clearance between the tires and then come back out and let it open back up.
I think Jeep has done that to gain clearance over an axle. They ovalized the hump section and had that Cobra looking shape as an OEM exhaust. So
Yeah.
to incorporate that and twist it in, that would be an awesome piece.
That's something that now the skill set comes out.
Yeah.
You know,
So that would be.
it's
a
one
good-
thing to imagine it, it's another thing to build it.
And this line here, this all needs to be cut off. Yeah, that's all going to get cut. Pretty much. Normally, on a lot of the trucks that we've done, they get cut here, and then we'll have the tubs that come in, and we'll put a 90 flange on this.
Got
so
it.
it depends on what your offset.
90 down.
90 down,
Yeah.
and then it just plug welds underneath, and then our tub bolts into it here, and then comes up, and then we have the full radius. The plus with putting the hinges
stuff
back
is gone.
here,
Yeah.
that's gone.
That
Correct.
really sweetens up what's going on back there.
So depending on how big your setup is here and the pivot this way,
Yeah.
is what changes in here. But
You know-
then if you're opening up down here and that's tying into, let's say, because my tubs normally run to here, but we can run the tub all the way down to like the bottom of the core, and then that creates the pocket for that filter, and then you guys can do ducting here that just feeds right open into that filter. Well, I mean, we could split it right here, kind of where the E is and the H is.
Yes.
And then you could leave the factory grill here, but behind the grill, make the ducting to go back.
Just marry up to the back
Correct.
of the grill.
And then up through this section, either the ducting goes all the way up or we close all this out here. So the air's forced to go through here, this center section for the radiator and condenser,
Yeah.
and then they'll be split here and you'll be sucking that way for that intake and that way for the other
I
intake.
like that. In fact, I would want to split it right through, vertically through here.
Yeah.
So everything that is
Yeah, so
inhaled
all
for
this
thi-
from behind,
Yeah.
you duct all from this, and then you shrink it down to right where the filter kind of area is going to be, and then it comes
And I'm
into the filter.
I'm hoping when we get into here that we can buy some room horizontally, vertically and horizontally,
Mm-hmm.
for the filter to kind of live in this area. We'll have to see.
Do we have a filter we can kind of set here for reference right now? Just so we can go.
Anybody got a big ass filter?
Yeah, I'll depress you real quick with how big it is.
It'll depress you real quick.
This is a big ass filter.
Yeah, that's what we
All
call
right,
them.
so we're gonna
Yeah,
put
so how do we drop that down in there?
2 of those, one on each side.
We won't need the windshield washer. Yeah, one on each side.
All right.
Now you've got a cold air, extremely low restriction system. And the housing basically only needs to be about here. And generally we try to keep them somewhat conical with the filter.
Gotcha.
So the air might enter in the front. That's why I've rounded this a little bit.
Pushes it around.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
the boxing's back here.
Exactly.
All right, so let's do this real quick. Your core support mounts look to be dead line where your core support is.
Yep.
So with where the core support is, they're pretty much centered in line.
Yep.
This needs to be somewhere either close this way, or we can canter it this way or come forward. Because we're gonna have the radiator in here,
Right.
wherever, and then let's see what this thing, There you go.
Now, the worst
All right,
case.
so we could cheat it this way, here, and then the tub comes down right in front of it.
As long as we fill this area with cold air and no water, of course, then
Yeah, because this will all be closed out,
Yeah.
and then you're gaining full side air here, and then this back here will be closed and then kind of wrapped around here, and the air will just travel around that. I think that's probably our best bet, and then we'll just do the
Swing out of there.
ducting this way,
Yep.
and then pancake up, and then out again.
Yeah, best approach for the ducting.
That is where it is. You have the one big tube still coming back here. And so these tubes have to come through here, and they're gonna be coming up. Okay, so we're closer back here. So then that gives you room to come from here, and you stay away from.
Exactly.
But that hole in that hood might have to be bigger because it's gonna have to be scalloped or something around these intake tubes.
Yep.
If that comes up.
Yes, absolutely.
And then so the one piece on the back of the motor or the back of the supercharger is a billet piece machined.
Yes.
And then you guys will weld directly into that.
Uh-huh.
So are you gonna put like a Wiggin style clamp or a V-band somewhere in between that and where these go
There
for
has
flex?
to be.
Yeah.
And it's always best to do it where the tube is round.
Yeah, we've got
I've never seen an elliptical
vibrant
Wiggins,
HD clamps.
although they
Wiggins,
might make them.
Wiggins style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be probably somewhere around here, especially if the rest of this tube is mounted directly to the tub.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have that clamp here, whatever style you go, and then these elbows can be just connected right to the intakes.
The thing about the Wiggins clamps is they're not super beefy. They're no-step clamps.
And I don't think they
Yeah.
make one that's 6 inches big.
Well, no. That's going to mount on the tube with a conventional clamp. Yeah.
But you're gonna have to go from a 6-inch tube here to what size is feeding into that.
You know what I'm thinking? What I'm thinking is, I don't think we can get 6.
Into
the
the
back?
plenum.
Well, vertical. I don't
4-inch.
want to be bigger than the inlet area, vertical inlet area on the back of the blower. I'd like to stay.
Okay, so that's gonna be 4 inch.
Yeah, it's modeled with 4. We could probably go 5.
So we're going,
Come out of here to 5, let's say.
okay, so we start down here 6,
6,
and
and
then
then you
taper into an oval, and then somewhere in that oval it'll have to get split, so when it comes back out, it cones out, or just get a reducer and weld it on, kind of on the end, and then metal finish it or whatever you want to do. And
Or
then
if we
you're
want more
going,
compliance, and we could get a hump hose reducer.
Yeah.
If we want to introduce it there.
and then so you go down to the 5, and then you're keeping your 5 in.
Yeah, we got to work through
Whatever that clamp is, it's got to look
Yeah.
pretty because everybody's going to see it.
Well, yeah. Everybody's going to see that ducting in the fender well. I mean,
If the hood's open.
I think the only time the hood's closed is when it's moving. Otherwise, if it's parked, I want to just open it up because people are going to come and look.
What are you guys going to do for steering?
Well, that filter isn't going to be there anymore.
The steering angle is, oh man, where's it at?
Let's go right into that motor mount.
Yeah, oh, there it is.
Well, he's got the steering shown.
There it
in
is,
his
there it
CAD.
is. So
Yeah.
you guys got to get from there to the firewall, which probably is going to sit somewhere around here.
So we're going to need probably one U-joint in that.
Well, if you keep this, you're going to need at least
that's
3.
gone. That
So
needs
this
to be
whole
gone.
thing goes gone. Does
Yeah.
this up here take off?
Yeah.
Okay,
Now
yeah.
we'll have an in and out mounted to the block, you know, for the oil in and out.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the only thing that's stopping us there is to say that I think the block's about 2 inches, and then we've got the AN90 coming out of there, so it's
All right,
you
so
know, maybe 4 inches out.
while we're here, you got firewall roughly somewhere around right here.
Yeah.
Master cylinder is here. No booster, correct?
No booster. I
Okay.
think we're going straight up there.
So
We've got 2 master cylinders.
wherever our master cylinder is, if you have the 2 of them,
Yeah.
this now intake tube is now moved forward, so the other side is going to have to match. So
True.
like, depending on, they might have to come up slightly higher just to get around those. Okay. How big is the manifold? Is it like a log style?
No, it's actually has runners on it. The boost air enters the bottom of it in the valley, pushes up through the charge air cooler. The top is shaped so that it comes around 180 and into the ram tubes. There you can see it. Yeah. Now this will be, the yellow section will be different because these heads don't have individual ports on them, but there'll be a connective piece from here, from the bottom of this to the head. Charge air cooler element goes inside. So this is a deal that I built, and these are existing castings, for our marine version of this engine. It was actually built for an LML.
And what side of exhaust are you guys running out of the?
About 2.5.
2.5, 2 1/4.
Yeah, at least 2 1/4, probably.
Running out, and then you're going what? Because you're coming out the side of the bed to a 5-inch?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I mean, we hadn't talked about doing headers, which would be even sexier. You know, we've got to get the space claim figured out.
So you're coming out of here, out the side here, and running out the side.
Yeah, we're outside the side rails and then through the side of the bed.
Okay. Yeah, because whatever is coming out here might have to get notched into the firewall as well.
Ah, good
and
point.
the firewall might need to come back for that. Because at the same time, if we go the other way.
Yep, now we're at full lock the other direction.
Yeah, so now you have firewall here. You're probably going to need a notch a little bit for the tub on the firewall. And then you might have to notch more to get a 2.5 out. And then it's going to be stepping up to 5.
If we go to headers,
then you can do the header all the way out and jump here to a V-band here. And with the tub coming into here and then just galloping around, it's still pulling down a ton of the heat out the bottom too. Now that we've pretty much discussed everything from the motor, well, the front of the car back to the firewall.
All right.
Well, let's start moving back. I mean, you have the Allison right here, which obviously you're going to need a transmission tunnel for that thing because it's pretty big.
Yes.
And then the question is if you're going 1-piece drive shaft or 2-piece.
Or 2-piece, yeah.
Yeah, because a 1-piece with the actual tires that are going to be on this thing, the axle is going to go up maybe another 3 inches. You're going to have the angle of the drive shaft. You're going to have to do a drive shaft tunnel as well. If it's a 2-piece, you can put the carrier bearing right below the cab, and then it's just pivoting at the back of the cab, and you don't need to notch the cab for that.
Exactly.
But with the power this thing puts down, a 1-piece might be a stronger bet.
I think you're right.
Unless it gets too long.
But the minimum, I mean, if you don't have a slip yoke right here, then you got a slip yoke at the front of the drive shaft. So that will shorten up the tube a bit. Just that.
From where the body mounts are, the bench seat's pretty much going to be right about here. So the front of the bench seat, this tunnel is going to be coming right into that seat.
So what we're doing is 2 buckets and a console, center console.
Okay.
So that'll get us out of that trap.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that center console hides the driveline tunnel if that's needed. And then I guess the only thing really with the cab is checking the actual structural body mounts to make sure they're not too rotted away and we don't have to fix them. But with the cab, I think that pretty much wraps up any of the sheet metal with the cab and from cab forward. Now it's just the bed. So I see we have the bed mounts right here.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to go over is exactly all the aspects of this bed.
Yes.
When it opens up, what the inside of the bottom half is going to look like, what the inside of the top half looks like, in the inside top, and when it's opened, what it looks like on the back side.
Gotcha.
All right. Let's go around and take a look at it.
Yeah.
So the initial plan, I guess, is you guys are going to split it right here. And then just split it around the back body right here. What are you guys doing for tailgate? Not on the back here.
I think it's just split. Wouldn't
Tailgate's
it be? It's going to
split?
follow the split.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should lower the Chevy logo down to the bottom and then just redo the tailgate so it's just the top half, but the Chevy stays where it is. I think that would look clean because you don't want to cut the Chevy through the center of it. Yeah. With the inside of the bed opening up and it's still completely enclosed, we can utilize the factory, well, that one's pretty beat, but we can make new tubs and run it right to the bottom of the fender lip.
Got it.
And then for the inside panels, do you want to do anything here? Because this panel is actually part of the top. So if we open it up, we could leave this here.
Yes.
And then just move the tubs up, and then we're just doing a clean bulkhead and maybe top part of what would be the tailgate. So do we want to do a panel in here? Make it, a panel from here straight to where the floor is, or do we want to keep the stock looking stuff?
We'll probably have to for the actuators because they're going to have to land in here, and then we're gonna have the hinge
we
system.
gotta give it some structure.
And
Yeah.
because we're gonna have to have
Right down in here.
a dual hinge system, because if we just go, a single pivot point, this is gonna crash into itself, and I don't want to cut into this body line and have a recess.
So it wants to swing and raise.
Up and out.
Yes.
And that, but like in the renderings, I think the actuator's biased too far back, and we're gonna have all of the deflection of the bed.
Yeah.
So we gotta tuck it as close to the tubs as we can, and still be able to have the supports for that.
Correct.
So that's not gonna wobble.
And you'll still have to do the bracing in for all that to stiffen it all up.
Right, so I think a good approach maybe is if once you make some headway in the tubs, we can figure out a mounting point as far forward as we can, and then design out the
I think
hinges.
the first step actually would be to, split the bed, and then figure out the bed height where we want it, build our framing structure,
and build around that.
and then my tubs would mount on top of that, and the side panels would go from here down to the framing structure. We'll need a sample of what the wood is, because if we do beading, we want the same, you want to gap it so the beads look evenly proportioned off of what the wood is.
Yep.
Because you don't want to make it, then you put the wood up and then the bead looks really close to the wood. So we need to get the height of the wood, figure out what designs we want to put here, and then put them all the way around so they match. And then when this thing opens up, everything from the bottom side needs to be finished. So if our structure is, if we make it like 4 inches deep to float and kind of hide your wood, and then the panels on the bottom side go in, they'll need to bolt in but wrap around the sides, the hold, to kind of hide where the structure, so you don't see it.
Yes.
To most people, when it opens up, it'll just look like a top and bottom. They won't realize that it's actually 4 inches or 3 inches thick.
Exactly.
But then you have a clean look, because then you could just have like button head bolts from underneath, and then you have the wood stainless hardware on the top, but you don't see where it's actually going through.
Button heads would look sweet. Those internal wrenching guys. Yeah.
Potentially some sort of a hinge system up front,
Do
so
they
that
make
when,
Torx
so it's not
button
opening
heads?
up on us.
Correct.
That
Worst
would-
case
that would be the
scenario.
look.
What I've done in the past is I like to use Corvette latches, like
Hood latches?
door latches.
Door latches.
Because like a new modern Chevy, you can close your door with the pinky.
True.
So like a lot of the builds I do in my shop, we get rid of all the latches and we update everything to like a modern, like a Corvette style latch.
Yeah, where you're
Just
not.
because you don't have to slam things anymore.
Exactly.
Everything
It
closes
just-
so nice. Another one
that
that
is
would be
righteous.
actually be, I think, really good for this would be a Mercedes latch. I want to say it's SL550. The hood latches are swivel. They rotate.
Yeah.
And so once they catch down, so with the bed being, the pivots being all the way back here, your ram back here, if it's a little off, since they swivel a little bit, once it goes down, it locates down into the thing.
Exactly.
And you have play with it, but it locks it down in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That sounds,
So those,
It kind of guides it.
correct.
Yeah.
That'd
And
be
you have a
perfect.
little bit more leeway, because with the Corvette ones, you're with a fixed striker
Yeah.
and the fixed metal. With the Mercedes ones, like I said, they're on a swivel.
Got it.
And so they have some play, which I think would be better for this.
Yeah.
And then the other thing with Mercedes, their hood latches, is there's 2 latches per side. And there's 1 pull cable for the 2 latches.
Yes.
So if you did it on the bed, you could have one of the latches per side and then have it on a door actuator to release them. Or you could put a safety pull in the cab to release it like a hood latch.
In case the actuator dies.
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
mechanical setup.
Yeah. Or in case somebody gets, oh no, that's not a trunk.
Yeah. So that is, and then you could just mount the latches into the, the bottom half of the bed, and they can be tied into the inner structure.
Right.
Because now the other half of this is when you open this up, now it's almost like doing another engine bay. Because now you're gonna have
Yeah, what do we want to show?
the side panels of the bed
are there.
are there.
Yeah.
But then when this is open, you're seeing the back side of the panels, which you don't want to see, because when you look at the chassis, those are here. And so now you're going to see all the ground. You'll see the bed mounts for the bed frame.
Exactly.
So now you want to do, I think, another panel down to maybe hide the bed and go to the frame or to the outside of the frame. So maybe you show off everything that's mounted in here as like jewelry, but then everything from this point out is hidden on the inside of the bed
I like
frame.
that.
And then what are you guys doing for gas tank?
Aeromotive? Yeah, we're doing an Aeromotive all-in-one system, just a basic box mount.
Air management?
Ride Tech. And then
Where are you guys going to install the management, the air tanks, the gas tank? I'm assuming is going to go in the far back.
Yeah, we're trying to get
air tanks. I think we were thinking.
We had the cylinders, I think, down in here.
Yes.
Inside the frame rail.
Inboard on the frame rails.
Oh
in
yeah,
that
because
pocket.
you don't have exhaust running through there, so you
Right.
gain the space in there.
Exactly.
So it's fair game. Drive shaft in the middle, air tank, air tank.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's all hardlined and plumbed, showing all of that center section.
Oh yeah, you want to show. You do nice
Exactly,
hard
will be
line.
nice.
To me, plumbing and wiring makes or breaks the whole project.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Fuel tank, battery. How about charge air cooler plumbing? Do we want a rear mount?
Where are we going to put the reservoir?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So that'd be a lot of water line. We could potentially have a lot.
Well,
a
where
good
do you
amount
want to? I guess the question is, where do you want to fill the reservoir?
Right.
If the reservoir was part of the center console between the seats, and we have a fill that's outside the cab, above the bed, through the back of the cab, into the reservoir for the.
A lot like the stock.
But if you had a
Yeah,
nice,
charge air
clean
cooler
aluminum
reservoir.
tank and you had the reservoir in the back, when you fill up to fill the gas,
You could do
fill
it
the
right
reservoir
there.
right
And then with
there
all
too.
the
There's another way
volume
to
from
go.
all the volume from your hard lines, you could have a pretty small tank.
I mean,
deal.
you have plenty of room from these cross members because these center cross members are 2 inches off the ground, or almost, I think they're like 2.5, 3 inches off the ground. So you have a lot of room to plumb
Under those.
under those
Yes.
without worrying about hitting
Exactly.
anything.
Exactly.
And
It's
I
optional.
mean, the bed's mounted up here, so you could plumb up here and then come down if you needed it
Yeah.
and go under like the other one.
But where we put it is optional, but we've got to have a pump system somewhere as
Yes.
well.
So I think a good choice, at least for the pump on this guy, would probably be that inline Stewart EMP we tested
Right.
a while back.
Absolutely.
It's got a small footprint, it's inline, and it flows
and
a hell of a lot of
they
water.
move a hell of a lot of water, and they make head pressure
Yeah,
because we're going to need a little bit to get it through the system.
right, and then just mount it right in
So-
line with the rest of it.
We're looking for something north of 50 gallons a minute. If we could get 30, I'd be happy. If we can get 40, it's wonderful. If we can get 50 or 60, ooh, baby. But we're not going to have a lot of squeeze time on this thing. So we want enough so you've cold soaked the heat exchanger, and then you squeeze on it, and you're heating water, but for a short period of time. And you know what I do? I do a supply pump and a return pump.
Mirror it.
that?
Yeah,
One's pushing, one's pulling. So
Won't have to
it's
worry about-
symmetrical.
won't have to worry about flow with those going.
Yeah. Well, we freight trained them before, but it was a pump into a pump.
Yeah, in series.
So they're not freight trained, they're one pushing and one pulling.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that would work beautifully and look great. The two tanks, everything, sweet. Here's the thing I like about this. So we're going to finish mocking it up here to your instructions, how you want it. The body on, maybe the master cylinders are mounted. Everything that could bolt to the stock body.
Maybe a little sawzall work with the.
Yeah, you guys are for sure going to have to cut some stuff out of the way.
Gently trim, I don't want to cut too much. And then we'll get it up to your place.
Make sure everything's on the motor that's going to be on the motor is one of
Gotcha.
the big things.
100% of it, yes.
Yep. And then that way everything's there. We know what we're working around. We can move stuff out of the way when we have to, but it's all there, and we can, the design will all play off of everything that's there.
Exactly.
All right.
Man, I'm looking forward to this.
Don't miss the next episode. Gale drops some knowledge on gearing.